You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Testudo Times. I'm Brendan YSL.
Sam Jane.
And Michael Howes, and this week we have on Terps football commit and Spaulding defensive back Jayden Shipps.
So right now, you're still at Spaulding. A couple of your teammates already early. A couple of the fellow commits already early enrolled. Spaulding taking classes. Kind of your excitement to graduate, and come down this in June and get started with the football team.
I'm just excited to, get back playing football. Football I've been revolving my whole life around it. So I'm just excited, meet new guys, meet new coaches, getting a college atmosphere. Like that's one of my biggest dreams growing up was getting on the college atmosphere. So now that I finally got an opportunity, I'm just excited to play ball, honestly. I just want to get on the field again.
Obviously, Malik Washington is one of those guys coming over with you to Maryland. What's your relationship with him like, and how excited are you to get back on the field once again with him?
That's my guy, man. We get a lot of great work in the guy. I knew him since I was younger. We played eighth grade ball together a little bit before he transferred out there on me, left me hanging. But that's my guy, man. I'm excited to go up there and play another season with him.
You've obviously seen him in big games. You guys made it to the championship, won the championship last year, undefeated season. What can you say about his poise in those big situations of being able to put the team on his back and having composure?
That's one thing I'll say. He has great composure. I never seen him panic. I always seen him, let's go. Like every time something happened on defense, he's like, yo, Ship, let's go. Let's pull together. And everything happened, obviously, like, yo, Lee, let's pull together. We never argue with each other on the football field. Some teams have always argued with each other. We always, like, bro, I got you, bro. We got you back. I got you back. Like, things happen in football. It's going to go wrong because everything's never going to be perfect. He's not perfect. I'm not perfect. But, like, we always know that we have each other back, and that's all we got.
What was your, main specific reason for why you wanted to come to Maryland?
My main reason, man, is a lot. I can't name a lot. I'm gonna start with the coaching. Coach Williams, Coach Locke, Coach Azar. Coach Azar was my first offer at Boston College my freshman year, and me and him been really tight ever since. And then when I heard he was coming to Maryland, I was like, yo, that's my guy. Like that's all my pieces coming in one spot. So it's just like everything just formed perfectly together, And I love Maryland's atmosphere, man. Like I've been to a lot of places, and the hospitality that Maryland gave me every single time I've been out there has been like no other.
Did you show up to a lot of visits? I know you can only take one official visit or whatever, but did you come to a lot of games in the past season at Maryland when they were at home?
Oh, of course. I went to a lot of games throughout my whole entire high school experience. Like my freshman year, I've been to a lot of games, sophomore year, junior year, because I have a lot of teammates up there. That was on the Spaulding team previously that I like to go see, watch. But I just like to watch football, man. Maryland's the closest thing to home, so I always go up there and see a game if I can catch it.
Now transitioning, as we speak in February, you're still in high school, correct?
Yes, sir.
When are you gonna start at Maryland? I assume sometime in the summer.
Yeah, I give up there June 15th to be exact.
Very nice. So kind of get integrated in the defense. Then I assume looking from the outside in, knowing who's going to be on Maryland's roster, having a good idea who's going to be on Maryland's roster on the defensive side. Who are you most looking forward to playing with at Maryland?
Man, that's a good question. I would say everybody to be exact. My Spaulding guys, man. I like I said, Kellen White. I got LeVan Scruggs, all the guys I used to play with my freshman year that took me under their wing to mold me to the guy I am today. I get a chance to finally, I'm older now. I get a chance to play with them, show them what I can do as an older guy. Because I was 14 playing with them as they were 18. So I just want to get back on the field with them guys and see what's going to happen.
Moving into the season at Maryland coming up, what do you think? Obviously haven't got on the practice field yet, but in your mind, what do you think your impact will be in year one if you have some?
Just to bring my leadership in, man. My coach has been doing a great job molding me to be a leader. My whole life, I've been trying to be a leader. So just bringing in leadership, bringing up different aspects of life. I'm just like I said, I'm just excited, to bring in what I got, and I think I could definitely contribute to the back end as well, catching interceptions for the guys, taking some pick sixes, that's what I think I could contribute definitely.
When you were growing up in this area, was Maryland a school that was on your mind? What was your view, kind of as a kid, just growing up, of Maryland football?
See, Maryland football, I always had Maryland football in mind, but like I said, when Coach Azar and Coach Azar came over there, it really took a lot. It took a whole thing over for me, Like Coach Azar was one of my favorite coaches that took me under the wing my first year. Like I said, he's my first offer, and Coach Williams was my second offer. So it all just like I said, it all just molded together at one point. And it just, like I said, everything I wanted was in one spot, and that was Maryland, and just happened to be home.
And you had mentioned Coach Williams in your previous answer. Obviously, it was reported recently that he's going to be going to Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
Has there been any update for you about the role of defensive coordinator last year? Is Coach Abdul Rahim, is he stepping into that role full time now? Do you know anything?
I'm not sure about if Coach Azar gonna step in there. I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I definitely wouldn't mind it. But I wish Coach Williams the best wherever at Jackson State. I wish him the best, man. That was my guy for sure. He's a great guy.
Who was like your lead recruiter in your recruiting process? Which coach was kind of reaching out to you the most? Do you have any like fun recruiting stories from that time?
I would say all, like I said, since like I was younger, I've been talking to them. Every time I go up there, it was always great vibes. Like they knew me since I was a little kid. Like it's crazy. But I would say definitely Coach Williams or Azar, man. Like them two, those are my guys. And then I think a little story I could share. I think on my official visit. See, I never touched a little golf. What is it? A club? I never touched a club in my life. We went to Top Golf, and I don't know what happened, but Coach Q, he showed me do it one time, and I was just hitting dingers, man. I was just hitting dingers. It was just like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just coachable, man.
Were there any other funny recruiting stories from schools outside of Maryland? Any kind of tactics that kind of caught you off guard and maybe surprised you?
I'm honestly, that's a question I got to think on another time, man. I don't really know. That's a great question. Wow. I'm not sure right now, on top of my head.
We've asked about Malik a little bit, but another one of your Spaulding teammates coming to Maryland is Delmar White.
Yeah.
A little bit more quieter on the football field, not somebody who's as outspoken, but definitely somebody who's a game wrecker on the D line and can really make an impact there. Kind of what type of impact do you think he's going to have at Maryland? Something similar to Spaulding?
I see one thing about Delmar, he's a very underrated guy. I think he's a very underrated cat. It's just like he's just always working. Like that's the only person I know that will literally just skip anything just to hit the gym. Like we was on our official. That's just a little funny story. We was on our official, and all the guys went out together. We just had a little fun. Delmar was in the gym lifting with Jordan Phillips, and I'm just like, bro, like you can have some fun sometimes, but it's just crazy. His work ethic is like no other.
Yeah, Delmar definitely, that's one of the things that kind of stuck out about him when I first met him, just kind of his strength and his pure size. Like,
yeah,
dude is massive, and it shows up on game day for him. Do you think he's going to be someone who's an impact player early on for Maryland? I know he had that knee injury the year for you guys, but what kind of impact early on do you think he could have?
I think so. Delmar's a very coachable guy. I think he could easily fit into the scheme now. You really can't teach strength. Like you really can't teach strength. Like his strength is actually crazy. Like if I could show y'all, if I could take y'all to a workout with me and show how he lives, it's insane. Like he makes me feel like I'm a small guy, and I'm not a small guy. So I'm like, it's just crazy. But like, yeah, like you really can't teach strength. So like, he just be throwing guys off the O-line. Like our conference is not no small conference. So like the fact that he just be throwing guys flying all over the place, legs in the air, it just be crazy how like like I said, you just can't teach strength. Like. And we have great coaches up there, so I definitely think he could definitely impact early, definitely.
Obviously, in recent years, Maryland's secondary has had some struggles at time. It hasn't had the best performances at times. I know you're coming in, you're hoping to reverse some of those challenges that they've had, but have the coaches given you any explanation at all on why there may have been some pass defense struggles in recent years?
I mean, not much. I mean, they just want me to come in and do my job. That's the one thing they focus on. They want me to come and do my job. They feel I can bring a lot to the table because I can play a lot of positions at the back end. So they just want me to come in, know the playbook, come in mentally, physically prepared, which I have been doing. So I'm like I said, I'm just really excited just to come in, show what I can do this year.
Is there a Maryland game on the schedule this upcoming season that you are most looking forward to?
See, I know there's a away game, but definitely UCLA. I just want to go see Cali, man. I just never been out there before. I definitely want to go UCLA, definitely.
I feel like that's the pretty obvious answer. Going to play in the Rose Bowl. You talked about your relationship with Williams and Azar, but what's your relationship like with Coach Loxley? How How heavy did he recruit you personally, if at all?
Yeah, Coach Locks, that's my guy, man. We've been I actually just seen him like 2 days ago at this event I was at. So, we always cracking jokes. Like he's just a great guy to be around, man. He's like we talk football, but when we're not talking football, just all love and cracking jokes. He's just a great guy to be around. I don't know if any of y'all saw his house, but like he got his house is massive, bro. Golf carts, I'm talking pools, I'm talking basketball courts. It's crazy, man.
Is that part of the recruiting visit to see Coach?
I don't know, but he got me good with that one. Yeah, he got me good with that. I'm definitely gonna be taking a couple visits at Coach Locke's house next year. Definitely, I'll be at his house.
I want to take it back to Spaulding a little bit. I was talking to you in the come up to this past year's MIA title game. You're telling me about the celebrations post game. That's kind of one of the things that stuck out to you the most. One of the memorable moments for you in the previous 2 championships. What was that celebration like at the end of this year's? You're capping off your senior year with Spaulding. Like I said, you kind of watched the ascension of the program. Kind of what did that mean to do that with your guys one last time?
It meant a lot. It meant a lot to us, man. Like we really wanted that. Our seniors, we felt like we deserved that. All the hard work we put in the off season, all the long nights, early mornings we put in. We all felt like we deserved that. And the thing about Spalding, nobody puts themselves over each other. And that's one thing I can say about Spalding, man. It's just like we're actual brotherhood, like an actual brotherhood. Like we felt like we deserved that 3rd championship right there, man. Just for the Spalding. Nobody's done that in Spalding yet. So like we also wanted to make history. Like we came so far this year, but the rankings and stuff like that. But we wanted that for ourselves. Like we wanted it and we took it.
Staying with the Spalding years, do you have a specific play either from the past year or the past 3 years that you remember that's your favorite play on the field?
Yeah, man, I'd definitely go championship. I think my sophomore year championship game. Well, I don't know, man. I got a lot of clips running through my mind right now, but I'll start sophomore year real quick. Sophomore year, I went out. They threw like a jump ball. I took a little jump ball pass, and I jumped the highest I've jumped in my life to go get the pass. And it was just like when you seen the clip on the video, like I was like genuinely just like floating everywhere. It was just crazy. Like that's definitely one of my favorite plays. And like, yeah, man, I definitely go that one. Definitely go that one. Definitely go that one.
Well, if you have the clip, I'd love to see it at some point. But I'm sure you described it pretty well. Just a very nice high jump and
more to come at Maryland, man. I'm gonna show y'all some more at Maryland for sure.
You the rest of your school year at Spaulding, and then good luck whenever you get to campus in June.
That's it. Thank you, man. Anytime y'all need me, just hit me up, man. Thank you.
It was great to talk something other than men's basketball for 15 minutes there, but obviously we have to talk about it. Michigan State beat Maryland on a buzzer beater on Wednesday night. Most ridiculous atmosphere I have seen while I've been a student here at Maryland. The Xfinity Center was electric for all the chirping that had been going on Twitter. The students showed up, but Maryland offensively didn't have much to show for it. Sam, you covered the game. I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, we're right off the game, actually, recording on Wednesday night, so fresh thoughts. And obviously the Trey Holloman half-court shot is the story of the game, right? I mean, to hit that type of shot from well beyond half-court was incredible. Flashbacks to Cassius Winston doing it in 2019 at Xfinity. But I don't think it was that shot that lost Maryland this game. I think it was the 38 to 39 minutes prior to Holloman's half-court heave that cost the Terps, because this was the worst offensive performance all season in a game where like Brendan said, the atmosphere was truly incredible. I think Tom Izzo said it pretty well. He said, I felt that we deserved to win the game. I don't think it was just some lucky shot at the end. And I think that that's not coach speak. I think that's very valid. Maryland played brutal offense. They shot 31% from the field, 20% from three, and scored 0 bench points. They were held to their lowest score within the first half and just didn't have any sort of offensive flow all night. I mean, Mike, Derek Queen struggled. Selton Miguel struggled. Julian Reese struggled. All of the guys that we've talked about all season being able to provide the offensive kind of potency that we've seen from this team just disappeared. And I think that part of it was Michigan State's defense. The Spartans kind of held Maryland in check both in the post with just throwing different bodies at Queen and Reese, and also on the perimeter. They chased around Gillespie and Rodney Rice exceptionally well, ran Maryland off the free-point line, and Trey Holloman, Jaden Akins, Jeremy Fears, and Jace Richardson did a phenomenal job of limiting the Terps guards and their kind of perimeter pick and rolls that Maryland loves to run. So I thought that it was an exceptional defensive game plan from Michigan State, but also a pretty pathetic offensive showing from Maryland, and particularly its two-star bigs, who I thought played some of their worst basketball all year tonight.
I didn't think it was an efficient game for either team, really, offensively. I mean, Michigan State also shot 33% from the field. I think in this game, you really saw the five starters, the Crab Five. We've been talking about them a lot, but at the end of the game, it just seemed like they got exhausted. And I think that kind of showed up in the score sheet. They got dominated in the paint tonight. They got dominated offensively with the rebounds, too. They gave up 13 offensive boards to Michigan. Maryland only got 4 offensive boards, got outscored by 12 in the paint. I've talked about it a lot with the bench depth this year, but I think it really showed tonight. You see Michigan State, all 10 players who played tonight scored. Bench points comparison, Michigan State 20, Maryland 0. Only 2 shots off the bench for Maryland, 2 taken by DHS. Not a good showing for the Terps bench, kind of highlighting those struggles for them. I also think maybe you see that exhaustion coming out in Gillespie's last shot. Obviously, this is all pure speculation, but he played 37 minutes to that point. Do you think he really wanted to drive into the paint with 5 seconds left, or do you think he'd rather want to take a deep three-pointer where he doesn't have to exert that much effort after playing 37 minutes? Don't know, but definitely could have been a factor in that shot selection.
Maryland just, at the end of the day, got really fortunate to even be in a position where the game is tied 55-55 with 42 seconds left. It felt a lot, actually, like the Marquette game, where Maryland went down. It was, big game at home, a lot of energy. Maryland goes down, plays well, like back and forth until maybe the 8-minute mark, and then other team jumps out to a lead. That's obviously what happened tonight. And then Maryland battled back in the under 4, hit a bunch of free throws. I mean, Gillespie went 11 for 11 on free throws. He obviously didn't have a great game, but he had that to show for it. They really shouldn't have even been in the position to have a chance to tie the game and even hit a game winner. They had that opportunity. The biggest thing people are going to be talking about, obviously, is the time that Gillespie took the shot. I don't think it just falls on him, though. I think it's all 5 of the guys on the floor, how they reacted after they got the rebound and how they reacted after the shot went up. If you look at Celtic Miguel standing in the corner after that shot goes up, he puts his arms up. He's just watching the ball, seeing what happens. There's 5 seconds on the clock when that ball leaves Gillespie's hands. I mean, if Miguel just makes a play for the rebound and just taps it a different direction, Michigan State never has a chance to, get the ball up court and hit a buzzer beater to win the game. So it comes down to, obviously Gillespie took the shot too early, but it comes down to the fact that the whole team had no situational awareness. All 5 of the guys, really, if you watch the last play, if they just crash the rebound and just affect Michigan State a little bit, we were talking about the difference between 1 second and half a second, and that's the game. So I'm sure Sam and Mike will both agree with me that, if Gillespie takes a shot later, obviously we go into overtime. I don't think Maryland wins the game in overtime with what Mike was saying. Obviously, the 5 guys were going to be out there. They played a lot of minutes. Celton Miguel played fewer minutes because of his fouls. But at the end of the day, Maryland was lucky to be in that position. And if they'd hit that shot, they would have stolen a game. And so I think that kind of flips the narrative in the sense that Maryland was going to lose a game at some point in the last 5 or 6 games of the season. It was either probably going to be this game or the Michigan game. And so they were going to lose one at some point. And if you're going to lose, you might as well lose in a way where you learn a hell of a lot about yourself.
I think that the point about Gillespie in the last shot too is, yeah, you would have liked to have seen him take it to the rim, I think, especially with the amount of fouls that he drew kind of down the stretch. But at the same time, I don't also blame him for, he got a decent look. Like, you don't know in those last seconds when you're playing, he's not necessarily, he's sped up. He's not looking at the clock thinking, okay, with 2 seconds left, I have to shoot this. He's thinking, how can I get the best shot possible right now? And his look wasn't like terrible. It was a one-on-one semi-contested 3-pointer. I think Brendan makes a good point that I think Maryland could have defended Holloman's shot better. At the same time, the guy made a 60-footer. Like, that happens 1 out of every 100 times, right? And so I think there's going to be a lot of reaction to that one play, but I think the bigger concerns moving forward is if Maryland gets a team, I think that this is still a very good basketball team that still has a a lot of potential. And I think if I had to pick right now, I would pick them to go on a pretty significant run in March. But I think that there are two things that like you really have to worry about. I think that Mike has talked about it all season, the lack of bench scoring. They had nobody to turn to provide a spark offensively off the bench when the starters were struggling. No secondary ball handler, no paint option that they could just kind of throw it inside to when Reese and Queen were struggling. And secondly, I think that this team is so predicated on the interior dominance of Julian Reese and Derek Queen, right? Gillespie and Rice are great, right? But if you don't have the post play that they've gotten all season, they don't look as good. And Rice played well tonight in the second half, particularly after struggling to start. But if they run into a team, where Reese or Queen either pick up quick fouls or is just a physical, grind it, gritty nature type of game, there are going to be teams, like Mike said, that shoot better than Michigan State did. Like Michigan State played awful offensively tonight as well. And you could run into a team that just has a couple of 7-footers and has a hot night shooting. And like we haven't seen an alternate. This has happened now multiple times when Queen and Reese struggle. This team isn't necessarily like poised to win those type of games. So Willard talks about, we need to throw it inside more. We needed to do that more. And I just think that there needs to be more creative offensive game planning on his end to get this team into actions to throw it inside more. Force it into Reese. Run some high-lows. We saw no high-lows with Queen and Reese tonight. It was a lot of Derek Queen mid-range shots, and he took 2 3-pointers. I think that there needs to be a serious thought, that this game proves that if your bigs are struggling, what are you turning to? Is it Jacoby Gillespie ISOs? Is it Rodney Rice DHOs? Whatever it may be, you have to find it.
I mean, Rodney Rice, speaking of him, obviously, I would say in the last month of the season, he's probably been the best player on this team. And you could argue that, but he's really put this team on his back. He's been playing incredibly well. He looks like an NBA player, honestly. I mean, if they don't have him tonight, they lose this. They probably score 38 points. I mean, his offensive play is incredible, and that obviously that isn't gone without saying. If Maryland doesn't get any production from the bigs, they're not going to be good. My overarching take about this Maryland team, after having watched them for the majority of the season, is that there is a very good reason that they are one of the teams that could win the national championship. I'm not saying they're going to. I don't think they are going to. But as Sam said, they are one of the teams poised to make a deep run. And the reason for that is they're one of a handful of teams this year that you could look at and say, okay, if you look at with 2 minutes to go in every single one of their games, there's a chance they win. Maryland hasn't gotten beat or blown out in any single game. And that makes you a competitive team down the stretch. It happened again tonight. It looked like they might, lose by 15 after the under 8 timeout. And then they make it a very competitive game. And they're able to play different tempos and styles, which allows them to play those type of games very close. I mean, if you look at Maryland's last 15-ish games or something, they've lost on 3 buzzer beaters. They lost on a buzzer beater to Northwestern, lost on a buzzer beater to Ohio State, and they lost on a buzzer beater to Michigan State. I mean, this team is 3 different plays away from having 3 Big Ten losses, and being one of the top 10 teams in the country. This loss obviously stings for them, but it doesn't change the fact that they're a very good basketball team. I didn't think Maryland would lose a game at home this season, a Big Ten game at home after the start, but they learn a lot about themselves, and as crushing as it is of a loss to lose that way, it doesn't change what we already knew about the fact that they're a very, very, very good basketball team.
I think the one promising thing, Brendan, you mentioned those 3 losses. The one thing that's different about the Michigan State game today is that they did not collapse in the second half. This was a game where they battled back. They didn't make a field goal in the final 4 minutes of the game, and yet they still were able to hit those 7 free throws, make it a tied game before the half-court shot. Definitely very promising that they were able to battle back like that. And like you said, we still know who this team is at the end of the day. They're a half-court shot away, 2 other buzzer beaters away from being at the top of the Big Ten.
I think one last point before we move on too that you have to remember is that Tom Izzo, his teams do this, right? I mean, They don't get rattled on the road. They didn't make a three-pointer for 28 minutes. They trail at halftime. Maryland came back in the last couple minutes of the game. And not once did it feel like, Xfinity Center was absurd. And then not once did it feel like, oh, this team is rattled. Like they didn't look good. Their offense wasn't good, but I didn't feel like it was because of the crowd. I felt like it was because they weren't making their looks. Like they couldn't shoot. They got good looks against Maryland's zone. They just weren't converting. Maryland ran a really nice defense. On the other hand, like, guys, this is a team. Julian Reese is the only real contributor that's played in meaningful Big Ten games in February and March. Selton Miguel has played 145 collegiate basketball games, but has he appeared in a contest that has the stakes of tonight's game? Probably not. Jacoby Gillespie came from Belmont, where basically all that mattered, and Kevin Willard said it this week, all that mattered was if you win your conference tournament, you're in the NCAA tournament. A game in February in conference doesn't have the same implications as tonight's game did. Rodney Rice had a great game tonight. He's barely played college basketball. Derek Queen is still a freshman. Like, these are guys that at the end of the day, they haven't played in March, legitimate basketball that matters. And I think that that's something that it's anecdotal, and I don't know if it'll matter like a month from now. But it was a point that I thought, like, Izzo's team clearly didn't look shaken. And I thought at points Maryland played like a team that hasn't been in that type of moment. And some of that I think is the crowd and just both teams being ramped up and just like, whoa. But I think that there is a little something there.
Yeah, very well said. To wrap it up, overall, just a very weird game of basketball. None of us thought it was going to be that low scoring. If you look big picture for a second, Maryland is basically out. Maryland's not going to win the Big Ten regular season, but very much still in contention for the double bye. In fact, I would predict them to probably get it. I think Maryland goes 2-1 to finish the year. Penn State game on Saturday, and then Michigan Wednesday, and then Northwestern Saturday after. I think Maryland blows out Penn State and Northwestern. Northwestern, they're going to have some blood out for because of the other buzzer beater that Maryland lost on. Beating Michigan at home is going to be really tough, but Maryland finishes the season probably either 2-1 or 3-0, and they're in a very good spot heading into the Big Ten tournament. And all in all, I would say successful regular season, but we'll have to see what happens there. We'll obviously be talking about it next week, hopefully previewing the Michigan game, and then we'll talk about the Big Ten tournament and go on from there. Speaking of Big Ten tournament, women's Big Ten tournament is next week. Let's pivot quickly and talk about them. They will face Indiana in their second to last regular season game of the year on Thursday, and they start the Big Ten tournament next week. Biggest game is obviously the Ohio State game, which they will play on Sunday. Similar to the men's, they're in a spot that, they can probably get the double bye in the tournament, and we'll have to see. What are your guys' thoughts going into the final two regular season games for the women?
Stay healthy. I mean, this is a team I feel like multiple times so far this season, you've seen Shai Sellers go down. Last game, Sailor Poffenbarger went down. Has there been an update on her injury yet? I don't believe so. But I mean, the biggest thing for this team is to just stay healthy. I mean, they don't have Bree McDaniel anymore. Shai Sellers has been battling the injuries. You lose one more key player. This team is needling a thread right now on having a good roster that can take them through March. So I definitely think the biggest key is to just stay healthy, get into the Big Ten tournament with a healthy roster of the players that they got right now.
This is credited by Matt News, who did a really nice piece in the Diamondback about the seeding for the Big Ten tournament and potentially March, because I think that earning a double bye in the tournament is so important. A 5 seed or higher hasn't won the conference tournament since 2010. So if Maryland can win these next two games, they'll clinch.
Maryland was not in the Big Ten then.
No, they will clinch a double bye. They'll have kind of, I think, a step up on the rest of the teams. I don't think that the Big Ten is as strong as at the top. I mean, I think UCLA is absurd and one of the best teams. So avoid them at all costs. And I think Maryland would have to probably play them as the 4 seed. But I think USC is a little overrated, and I'm not a huge Ohio State a fan. So I think that if they can earn a double bye, you're setting yourself up really well. And then you're potentially looking at the NCAA tournament, and we can talk about this further. But if you're a top 4 seed, you get to host at Xfinity, right? And Maryland currently has 5 quad 1 victories. Only 9 other programs have more entering the final week of the season, according to Noose. And I think that this team has proven they can beat a lot of really good teams, and especially on the road, they can win a lot of big games. Their road record this year is absurd. So I think that if they can pull out, I would expect 1-1 this week, realistically. If they can go 2-0, though, I think you feel really good about this team making the second weekend. And then it just all comes down to matchups, right? If Shai has a huge week, if the team stays healthy, as Mike said, I think that they could make a run. It feels like this team's ceiling is probably the Elite Eight. Realistically, I think around a 32 loss is probably what I'm thinking, but we can talk about that more when we get to the tournament. I'm just thinking that you go 1-1 this week, that probably gets you the double bye, doesn't clinch it. I think you got to win one of these games to put yourself in a good position for March.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said it. I think if Maryland wins 3 more games this season, then they're right on the line for the 4 seed in hosting. And hosting, obviously, is very important. I would expect Maryland to win the Indiana game. That Ohio State game is going to be tough. Although Maryland should have probably won the Ohio State game on the road at Ohio State. I think this team is slightly better than where they're currently ranked, but they're still a top 25 team in the country. And they're going to have an interesting final week of the season. And then, they did it last year in the Big Ten tournament. They had an upset, and I don't see why they couldn't do it again. But I think it does come down to a lot about what Mike was saying is how healthy is this team. We don't fully know at this moment. I'll definitely find out more at the Indiana game. And then in terms of women's basketball, we'll go from there.
Going from a team the 2 teams that are probably the best teams on campus right now, maybe you could debate the Lacrosses, but we'll go to a team that isn't. Actually, your future Big Ten champions, according to one of our co-hosts.
He said this many times, actually, not even just once. We have him on the record, I think, 3 times.
I didn't say Big Ten champs. I think I said they'd be top 3.
Okay, well, Michael Hauser, you sticking by your revised take now, which was not what it was originally.
We're talking about baseball for those who are unaware of Mike's hot take.
I'm going to have to temper the expectations a little bit. After a 2-1 weekend at the Swig and Swine Classic, the Terps have had a rough 4-game stretch. They just lost a series against Western Carolina the past weekend. They won 1 game, lost the other 2, and then Tuesday night, they lost 13-10 to a Delaware team that entered College Park with just 1 win. They were 1-5 at the time. Not a good start for the Terps. I know Sam, he has some thoughts about how the Terps have gone so far. I'll kind of rebound off of what you say here.
I just think that this team, Matt Swope told us when he came on that, he believed in the pitching and last year was a success and all of these things. And I understand it's coach speak. He has a message he wants to send. Completely get it. And I think that Swope is a fine coach. His offensive abilities as a coach is undebatable, that he is a great hitting coach. But now this is 2 seasons where it looks like this pitching staff is completely unsalvageable. And maybe I'm overreacting early in the season, but you're looking at a unit that gave up over a 6 ERA in the bullpen this past weekend against Western Carolina. They gave up, according to Michael House's tweet, quote, batting practice to Delaware, who was below the 130 line in RPI. They've now had 2 straight seasons where their team ERA has been worse than most of the seasons it was under Rob Vaughn. I think that this team, when you're currently looking at it, they have a 5.40 ERA. If you take out Kyle McCoy's start, that number jumps exponentially. If you look at the 2024 team, that team wasn't great on the bump either. I mean, you look at the numbers, they didn't have a true ace. Their ERA was 5.79. So I think that if you can debate and say, though this season was a success, we had the most wins in program history, this, that, and the third. But this is a second straight season now where Maryland lost a series to Western Carolina, lost to Delaware. They were bad in the Big Ten last season and dropped series to teams. Northwestern, I remember, as a terrible opponent that they dropped a series to. Where if you want to consider yourself to take the next step as a program to reach elite levels that Matt Swope and company keep talking about, that can't happen. It just can't. You cannot lose to Western Carolina. It doesn't matter how many program records you break in one game. Dropping a series to the Catamounts and then losing to Delaware, not great. And I think that there needs to be a serious reflection within the pitching staff particularly, but also the defense. And Swope can say we need to play clean baseball and all of that. And ultimately, that falls on the head coach. Your job as a coach defense is a very coaching based thing, right? You can have very talented defenders, but the lineup you put out there and also the coaching that goes into it is that's one of the skills that is not easy to control, because defense is not easy but it is something that is just more coachable per se than teaching a guy to increase his velocity by 5 miles an hour. And when you are one of the worst fielding teams in the NCAA, that falls on coaching. And I think that there needs to be a serious reflection around the baseball program about what this team and this kind of the Dirty Terps aspire to be and where they're at realistically. Because right now, as it stands, they're not competing for an NCAA tournament berth. This team currently, I'm not saying that they can't or they won't, but as it stands right now, this isn't a team that'll make the Big Ten tournament again for a second straight season. And that's a problem.
I know you opened with the pitching staff, and a lot of people online are going to be talking about the pitching staff, but like you said, I think there has to be a real conversation about the defense. Pitching hasn't been flawless, but it's a little bit more than that. The defense has been terrible for Maryland to start the year. Just the past 4 games, they've recorded 10 errors. Eddie Akopian, Chris Akopian, those are the leaders of this year's team. Those are the guys on the left side of the defense, third base, shortstop, that Coach Swope wants to be leading this team. They have been not doing that so far. Maryland's fielding percentage this morning ranked 262nd in Division I baseball. That would be the worst mark in the Big Ten right now. The pitching staff, I'm going to give a little bit of leeway for the pitching staff. There's a lot of injuries going on right now. There's a lot of moving parts going on. Players who are in roles where team didn't initially imagine they'd be in because of some injuries. So it's not a full staff at the moment. I'm not going to press the panic button right now, 7 games into the season, saying that the pitching staff stinks. I don't think that's the case. I think there are a lot of good arms on this pitching staff. I think they have a lot of potential when people like Logan Coaster, when Evan Smith, when James Gladden are able to come back and pitch for the Terps. But this team also has to put together a full effort, all 3 phases. They've had really good offense. They're averaging nearly 13 runs a game, but they still find themselves 3-4. Delaware, Tuesday night, I think that falls on the pitching. I think that was pretty bad. But the series against the Catamounts, I'm going to put a lot of that on the defense. I think they weren't putting their pitchers in good positions. When you're not fielding correctly, when you're having errors, that's going to prolong a pitcher's outing. That's going to make it harder for them. That's going to put more runners on base. That's going to up their pitch count. Makes it a lot harder for a pitcher to succeed when you don't have the defense behind them.
Mike obviously knows way more about baseball than I do, so take what I say with more of a grain of salt. But here's what I'll say. 7 games into the season, the offense looks absolutely incredible. But the issue is they're not winning games, so who cares? And the narrative that the offense is really good somewhat revolves around the 135-run performance, which is ridiculous on Saturday. But even with that being said, there's 7 games so far this season where they've had incredible offense, still haven't been against incredible pitching staffs. So it's overall really hard to know. Mike, I ask you this question. Would you rather be in a position right now where, like we see with Maryland, the offense is playing great, but the pitching is playing poorly? Or would you rather be in the opposite situation where the offense can't score at all, kind of like the softball team, I'll say, but the offense struggles to score more, and the defense is really, really good. The defense is keeping you in games. If you were a coach, Mike, what side would you rather be in? Would you rather be where Maryland is right now, where the offense is great and the pitching is bad, or vice versa?
I would say where the offense is great. I mean, you saw this plenty of times last year where the offense pulled them out of ruts, had amazing comebacks, got that cardiac Terps moniker. And that's the Terps offense. That's what this team has relied on for basically the past 5 years, the end of the Rob Vaughn era, entering the Matt Swope era. This team has relied on that offense. So I think there's going to be a big test this upcoming weekend for the Terps. They're playing number 12 Wake Forest twice. They also got 2 games against Princeton. So I think this is going to be a real test for them. Maybe last weekend against West Carolina, that's an outlier. They're going to regroup heading into Winston-Salem. Maybe they can put together some good starts, good bullpen performances, but it's yet to be seen. I'm not pushing the panic button yet. I still think there's a lot of talent on this pitching staff that they can pull it through. But, going to have to see what happens this weekend against Wake Forest.
We need to move off baseball because I think that there's more proven teams right now, but I just want to point out some final numbers. 6.48, 6.67, 8.76. Those are the ERAs of three of the pitchers that Mike mentioned as being extremely talented last season. Evan Smith, Omar Melendez, and Logan Coaster. I don't think that those players are bad. I think that Evan Smith in particular is someone that I think has a lot of potential. James Gladden barely pitched last season. He was injured all year, if I'm correct.
He didn't pitch at all, yeah.
If those are the players that you're relying on to pull your pitching staff out of the depths of whatever they're in right now, I think they're in more trouble than Mike might be letting on. So we'll have to see what happens this weekend and as we move forward.
I would love to follow up on that for 1 second, because Logan Coaster last year, he started every single weekend series. That is not the role that the team imagines him being on this year. He's going to be a long relief guy for the Terps. I think that's a role that could suit him perfectly, especially since he was an innings eater last year as a starter. I think having him in the bullpen, that could do a lot for the team. I think when Evan Smith comes back from his injury, that can do a lot for the bullpen, because that's putting him back into the starting position, putting Omar Melendez back in the bullpen, where the Terps really need a lot of depth right now, and they don't have it because of these injuries.
But we're that's fine, and I'm not saying they're not depth, but I mean, Mike, the numbers are the numbers. I mean, Logan Coaster, he started all he wants. He gave up a batting average of 359 last season.
He also pitched over 100, threw 100 pitches in his last start last year against Penn State. Like this guy is an innings eater, and that's what the Terps need in that bullpen. They can't keep throwing out 5 guys against Delaware. They need someone like Coaster who can help them out there.
That's enough about baseball. We're 7 games into a 50-plus game season. We'll talk about baseball more next week, and I actually think this upcoming weekend will tell us more than we think it will tell us. Mike and Sam, very appreciate on your in-depth analysis, almost as in-depth as the basketball game just happened, which I very much appreciate. Let's talk men's lacrosse, the best team in College Park by far, second ranked in the country, playing the number 1 team, Notre Dame in the country, down in Atlanta this weekend. Neutral site game, as was the national championship last year. It's a rematch of the national championship. What'd you say?
Game of the week alert, baby.
Oh, absolutely game of the week. Game of probably the month, honestly. I mean, it's not so often it happened Alabama, Auburn, obviously, in basketball. It's not so often in any sport ever. During the entire season, the number 1 and number 2 teams play each other. It's obviously happening this Saturday at 1 p.m. Maryland takes on Notre Dame. Maryland coming off the 4-0 start, winning against Princeton, where they played great. I mean, Maryland's already has wins over, at the time, number 2 Syracuse, and at the time, number 5 Princeton. This is going to be an incredible game, and Maryland is obviously, we talked to AJ Larkin about it. This is a game Maryland's been super excited for. 1, travel to Atlanta, and 2, it's a rematch of a game that they got destroyed in last year. I would expect this year's game to be much more competitive. Notre Dame is still a very good team. However, they're kind of not at the same point in the season they were last year. They're definitely not as battle-tested as they were so far. Notre Dame has played Cleveland State, Marquette, 2 games they won in blowouts, and then Georgetown the past weekend, where they only beat Georgetown by 2. I think a lot of the reason for the Notre Dame ranking at number 1 comes from how good the team was last year, kind of like what we saw with UConn this year in men's basketball, where they were ranked really highly just because they won the national championship last year. Frankly, I'm not sure that has to do anything about the team that's playing in 2025. Maryland is, I would say, closer to Notre Dame this year than they were last year, but obviously we're going to have to see that this weekend, and I expect a very close game. I'm not sure Maryland's going to be able to keep Notre Dame under 10 goals. But that's the magic number. Clearly, if they keep them under 10 goals, I think Maryland wins this game.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting matchup. It's kind of, I mean, you look at the numbers, and it's a very interesting style contrast. Notre Dame puts up 45 shots per game. Maryland only shoots around 33 times a game. The Terps don't convert on as many shots as Notre Dame does, so definitely a higher paced offense for the Irish. Notre Dame scores around 19 goals a game. Maryland's down, not as high as that. And I think that this team, the defense is what is going to save them. And I think if they can, I don't think it needs to be necessarily 10 goals, because Georgetown scored 9 on Notre Dame, and Georgetown isn't some great team. So I think that if Maryland can cross like the 12 threshold and hold Notre Dame to around 11 or 12, I think they could be right in this game. Now, if I had to make a prediction, I would go, you know what? 13-12 Maryland in a really tight one, in a thrilling game in Atlanta. I think that our guy Larkin scores a goal. I think that you have I know. I think it's a really tight game. I just think that Maryland, this team just seems defensively like they got some serious grit to them. I think that they are able to hold opponents and kind of change up the style that they want to do. Princeton and Syracuse both weren't able to really get going. So I think that I would take the Terps in this one. Mike, what about you?
I know this is a game Larkin said that he's excited for, but I'm going to have to go with the Fighting Irish on this one. Let's go 14-11 Notre Dame.
Brendan?
Maryland right now is playing with energy. They're playing very well defensively. With that being said, Maryland's lost the last 3 games to Notre Dame, and the biggest struggle in the last 2 has been the offense. I think that continues a little bit. I will take Notre Dame winning 12-10. It's going to be a great lacrosse game. Lacrosse fans worldwide will be tuning in, so it's definitely one we're going to keep our eye on. And worldwide, yeah, I can guarantee it. Yeah. I mean, if Maryland's global in one sport, it's probably lacrosse. So I'll take that with what it is. And let's talk women's lacrosse. Total bounce back week. As I had mentioned, the way they started the season in terms of their schedule is not what they wanted at all. Having to start the season against Syracuse, Maryland bounces back. They played Georgetown, which we talked about last week, and they played St. Joe's this weekend. Maryland will take on Denver, which is going to be a much closer game. Which where Kathy Reese used to coach, so that'll be a fun game for them. The offenses looked good, but a lot of those stats are kind of from St. Joseph's. This is going to be a very interesting game, similar to the Georgetown game. I would expect Maryland to win this game actually pretty handily. It's another game at home. They've been at home for a while. I'll take Maryland on this one.
Yeah, I would also take the Terps. I don't have much to add from what B said.
I'll also take the Terps.
Women's lax, they're rolling.
All right, start a trend there.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan's our women's lax guy. He's our lax guy. Come on,
I do what I can. Let's talk softball for a second, because why not? There was a lot of snow actually in North Carolina, or they were supposed to be playing. So one of the games against North Carolina got canceled. It ended up being a 3-game weekend against North Carolina. They lost to, and they also played West Georgia and Queens, finished those games 1-1. It's kind of like what we've been talking about. They're going to have a tough time competing with the upper tier Power 5 teams. I think it comes down to offensively and being able to put runners on base and being able to score. Not able to do enough of that to take down UNC. Lost that game 5-0. Only had 3 hits. So we'll keep our eye on softball. But for now, obviously, the main focus of tonight was basketball, and then a lot of baseball, obviously. Wrestling we'll talk about next week. They have the Big Ten tournament, do a little more in-depth on who's been performing really well and who I think can go deep. But for now, it's pretty much all I got on the regular sports. And
sounds like terrific Terp time.
I think it might be terrific Terp time. I'll stop pandering. This week's terrific Terp is Joe Walters. Last week, we talked with AJ Loughlin a lot about the life of a professional lacrosse player. Joe Walters knows that struggle and that journey very, very well. Walters tackled everything, and I mean everything, in his professional lacrosse career. He played in the MLL, Major League Lacrosse, from 2006 to 2018, then the Premier Lacrosse League after that, once those 2 leagues merged. In the PLL, he spent the majority of his career with the California Redwoods. He also played in the National Lacrosse League, which is an indoor box lacrosse league from 2009 to 2016. He was mainly with the Rochester Nighthawks then, and then played some years for the San Diego Seals in 2019. He also played in the Canadian Lacrosse Association for 3 years in the middle of his career as well. If all those lacrosse leagues confused you, that's pretty much the point I'm making. Playing professional lacrosse has been very difficult and continues to be a difficult way to make a subsistence living. Nonetheless, let's go back to Walters and how he started playing lacrosse. Picked up a stick almost the moment he was born and didn't put it down until 2022 when he retired from the sport. He's from upstate New York, but he made his way to College Park in 2003. Not only did Walters excel offensively at Maryland, but he made those around him better. Although never winning a national championship with the Terrapins, he had a very, very successful career. He still leads Maryland in game-winning goals with 13s, and he's he leads Maryland the extra man goals with 20, and he's 4th all-time in career goals with 153. He was a 4-time All-American. That's every year. And He capped that off in 2006 by being a finalist for the Torton Award. Overall, his Maryland career fell just short. He made the Final Four in 2003, 2005, and 2006. However, he did win the ACC tournament in 2004 and 2005. Walters is the journeyman when it comes to lacrosse professionally and all across the leagues. And his success offensively at Maryland makes him this week's Terrific Terp.
Good Terrific Terp to end it. Fun episode. Lot to talk about. Crossover season is crazy. Brendan's not feeling good, so we're going to get up out of here, end our night. We hope you got to enjoy a great game in Xfinity. Well, not great, I would say. An awesome atmosphere at Xfinity Center.
Atmosphere was wild.
Yeah. And you can come to Under the Shell to find all your analysis. YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, Apple, Instagram. I don't know. Shit, I assume we're on Blue Sky.
Whatever Mark Hyman is on.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you for listening. We appreciate you, and have a good rest of your night.
Guess what? You've got Under the Shell podcast. Nobody does it better.